I hate this part right here. It's stuck in my head.
What was that?
Hey guys, I'm Summer.
I'm Sean.
And this time we've switched spots. Today we're going to be doing a 2020 wrap-up. Because it needs to be wrapped up.
And it's funny because we're actually filming this on the 31st of December. So
New Year's Eve. We're going to start with our Goodreads challenges for the year. What we did and didn't do and maybe why or why not.
yeah, nice.
What was your challenge for the year?
50 books I plan to read this year.
Did you do it?
No.
How many did you read?
35.
Woo!
So more than half.
Yeah.
And better than last year because I think I did about 20
Yeah.
last year. So
And that was a struggle.
and that was in like 4 months.
Yeah. So I mean, you climbed 15 books. You enjoyed it.
Yes.
And it didn't feel like a burden.
No.
So I mean, I feel like that's a goal accomplished.
That's true. That's true. What about you?
So my original goal was set at 75. Because last year I did 55, I think. 50 or 55.
Yeah,
somewhere in there.
it was a lot.
And that felt doable.
Yeah.
I was like, I could totally do this. I can work this out. Even before knowing there was a pandemic.
Yeah.
What was it, around September that I said there's no way I'm going to hit this. So I moved it down to 50. I said maybe I can achieve that. That didn't happen. Today, I finished my 35th book of the year.
Yeah. So, yeah, we both read 35 books.
Yeah.
this year.
I did say at the beginning of the week, I was like, Sean, we can knock out 2 more books to make it an even 35.
Yeah, because we were sitting on 33 and I was like, yeah, the OCD in me is feeling that too.
I was like, I need a nice number. 33 is a gross number. I needed something nice.
Let's round it up. But, you know, I would love to know what your reading challenges were, if you had any, if it was 1 book, if it was 10, if it was 100. I hope you enjoyed reading this year.
Yeah. I will go back to one of our earlier videos. My sister challenged us.
Yes, that's true.
This girl said something like 200 books.
It was 200 or it was like 250.
Yeah, 230 something. Around
Something
there.
like that.
And I'm just gonna let y'all know she didn't do it, but that's okay. That's okay. She is a junior in high school,
Yeah.
so that was ambitious.
Yeah.
We all knew it wasn't gonna happen.
But she's
it's okay.
still an avid reader.
Yeah,
so,
with her workload and she's working, like,
So-
I'm
so-
impressed with her.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So
sorry.
well done.
Yeah,
Well
well
done,
done,
Riley.
Riley. Why do you think that 50 was unattainable for you?
Because of this year.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because we had so much time at the start of this year, you know, because of lockdown. I had months to read, but I just didn't. And the thing is, I took up other things, baking,
Painting.
foraging.
She's a busy girl.
But, you know, I didn't dedicate much time to reading, which is hilarious. But
It is good.
really, it was just this year.
But I'm glad you picked up new hobbies.
Yeah,
I mean, as
I
long
did.
as you had a good time, that's really what
Yeah,
matters.
definitely. And what about you? What do you think?
Girl. Honestly, I don't know. You know, at the beginning of the year, I was still in Korea, and so I knocked out some books. I read 2 while I was traveling.
Yeah,
like
you
I
did.
knocked those out. I bought a book in Scotland and finished it before I made it to New York. So I don't know. And then I got home and I knocked out probably 10.
Oh, that's amazing.
Like the first month I was home, and then I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
It was on a steady downhill. Like there was a couple of books. The Danny Brown, Chloe Brown.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I read that in
I read
Beach
those.
Read, and those are both really good books.
Yeah.
I think that's why I was able to read them.
Mm.
I think I was burned out.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Because in Korea, that's all I did was read.
Yeah.
So literally.
And that
all
was
I
kind
did.
of maybe reading for comfort kind of thing, but, you know, reading
then-
for enjoyment.
Yeah, and then once I got home, I felt like there was so much to do. There were so many people to see because I lived in Texas, and so lockdown was not a thing. So it's like I could do things, and I could go see people, and I could spend my time in different ways.
Yeah.
Playing games. I played so many board games when I first got home. So $35. You know what?
It's pretty good. Take
At least
it.
I read.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
And some of them were new books, not just rereads.
Yeah, not just rereads. We want to kind of talk about our top 5, you know, our faves of this year, and just give a little, well, not synopsis or
Little story.
It's
not the word either, but it's okay.
The summary.
There you go.
Without spoilers, or if there are spoilers, then we'll put a disclaimer. So, would you like to start with your top 5?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Mine are in no particular order because that would be unfair to them. But I will start with the one I finished yesterday. 10 minutes before midnight. It is The Historian by Elizabeth Kostova. I have been reading this book for 3 months. Well, probably longer than that. I actually picked up a copy in Korea and couldn't fit it in my suitcase, so it got left at Sean's house. It got left in London. And so then I clearly was not reading it while I got back home. But I found this copy, at a secondhand shop. And I said, oh, yeah, I want to read it. So I did. And then it sat on my shelf for probably 3 more months. But I finally picked it up. It demands to be read, and it demands your full attention. And I think that's why it took me so long, is because I was doing so many other things. So I think I was about halfway through it by the time I got here, and I finally just sat down and knocked it out. But it covers so many genres. Travel, history, a little bit of romance, Dracula. I love vampire stories of all kinds. The horrifically cheesy romantic ones, love them. The kind like this that it's not like that. It's more about history and the story of Vlad Tepes, not necessarily Dracula, who is the same person, but more about him as a person, not as a vampire, which is really interesting to me. This is written in a weird way, but I liked it. Letters, it changes time a lot, but it's a brilliant story about finding your past, solving your past, and coming through it the other time.
Nice.
Yeah. What's one of yours?
I've got Memoirs of a Geisha here.
Ooh.
By Arthur Golden.
Very nice.
And this has been on my list for years. And I finally picked up a copy in London. And honestly, I'm so happy I finally got around to reading it. It was really, really good. And again, like I said, I've been really enjoying historical fiction, and it's always like it's also a memoir, and it touches on Japan, it touches on the occupation period. Yeah, I really love that part of history, and so it was really interesting to read it. But yes, what about you? What's your next?
For the second one, I did All That Remains, A Life and Death by Sue Black. This is the one I talked about that I finished.
Yeah.
And now that I think about it, I did pick it up. I picked it up at Foyles in London. I didn't pick it up in Scotland.
Yes.
Foyles in London when she was my tour guide. And so many of our public transportation, that's all I did was read. And some of our tea dates.
That's it.
I am in love with this book. I would read it again. I've recommended it to so many people. Sue Black is a forensic anthropologist, and it's kind of like her memoir. She just talks about her life as a forensic anthropologist and talks about her work teaching medical students with cadavers and how it's important to keep the whole cadaver and to respect it and to honor it. And then at the end, what they do with the bodies and how they honor them, and they hold a ceremony for the families of the donors. And I just love this book. But like in the last episode we talked about, I love things to do with death, and
so it was fitting.
Yeah, I loved it. Wow.
So Girl, Woman, Other by Bernadine Evaristo. And this book, wow. Okay? Wow. Was it a Booker Prize winner?
I think so.
Yeah.
It was some kind of winner.
Okay, because my goodness, like when I started it, I wasn't too sure because I had read Queenie beforehand, but unfortunately I didn't really quite feel Queenie, and so I was worried about how Girl, Woman, Other was going to go, even though they're completely different stories. But I I was worried. They're both contemporary. But it was amazing. I wouldn't say it was episodic, but it's kind of like it follows each character, and each character has a part or a section in the novel. I really recommend this. It's about love. It's about finding yourself. It's about self-discovery, and trying to navigate your relationships and your independence. And I love how it follows an older generation, a generation that I'm not familiar with, but then I could still relate because of the other factors in the book. So yeah, amazing, Bernadine.
Another nonfiction memoir is Being Mortal by Atul Gawande. I think that's how you say his last name. I bought this one. I know where I bought this one. I was in Heathrow Airport going to Scotland.
Look at this one, honestly.
I remember I read part of it in the Elephant Cafe where J.K. Rowling wrote the first Harry Potter. That's why it's in my head. This book is amazing. Atul Gawande works with, he's a doctor. There we go, Summer. I think he's an endocrinologist, but in this book he talks about end-of-life care, nursing homes, hospice, all of that. He goes through it and talks about how we should still have the best quality of life at the end of our lives.
Right.
And that traditional nursing homes that we have now aren't cutting it. They're not good enough. And neither is current hospice care. And wow. I also really love this book. Clearly I have a thing about death, and that's fine. We can talk about it some other time. It was so powerful to me, and it made me almost want to become a doctor to work with old people, which is really funny because not something I ever would have thought about. But it's almost a call to action. It makes you want to do something with this knowledge that you now have, and I think makes you care a little deeper. I loved it. I recommend it if you're into that sort of thing. If not, it might be a little hard to read. But yeah, Being Mortal.
My next one is very similar to Memoirs of Geisha. So Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. And yeah, again, fantastic piece of writing. And again, historical fiction based around the Japanese occupation. But this time also looking at Korea as well. And this book broke my heart in so many ways, and the thing is, I tried to make Summer read it. At the beginning, again, it's very hard to get into. But once you keep going, and you're kind of going on a journey with the main character, and so once you can get past the initial, here is the character, this is what she's doing, the world building of it. And then all of these trials and tribulations come along. I think I would definitely reread that.
Oh.
Yeah, simply because it was very enjoyable, and I think there were probably some things that I missed or didn't quite understand that I would like to go back over again. My
next one is Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman. I read a couple of his books this year. We read Stardust together. Yes. Which was great. It is probably a runner-up to this list.
Definitely.
But, I love his writing style.
He's good.
I had never read a book of his. I think Neverwhere was my first one. But wow, I loved it. So this book is about a London beneath the streets. It's a different London full of things and history and creatures, and there's a chase and there's a little bit of a romance, and it's got so much, and clearly I love that with historian. There's just so much, and I feel like he's so clever with his words and his world building that he can do it so concisely, but also with so much detail and imagery.
Definitely with Stardust. I was like, how is this book so short yet
so intense?
It's so intense.
In depth, yeah.
And it feels like it wasn't rushed.
Yeah. That's how I'd say about Neverwhere.
Yeah.
I have a couple of his books on my list for this year. I just loved it, and I think that made me fall in love with his writing style. Yeah. Which I was not expecting when picking up a book.
But there you go.
There you go.
My next one is Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix by J.K. Rowling. Wow. Firstly, the whole series is amazing. My sister and we've been obsessed with the films for years. But the sad thing was that I never had the initiative to read them. because I was like, oh, okay, I have the DVDs. Okay, the next step is buying the books. This is what I mean about falling back in love with reading. I lost it for a bit and had no desire to buy books. So reading it last year, oh wow, Order of the Phoenix is my favourite, and reading it, there is so much that is not covered in the film, and we've spoken about this, especially talking about death and dying and grief. The grief that Harry feels in this book is just the way Rowling has kind of conveyed that is not really spoken about. I can understand why they want to keep it PG, because they're trying to reach a certain type of audience, and with a children's book such as Harry Potter, you don't want it to be too heavy, and you want it to be accessible to younger audiences as well. But I'm sad that they left out the grief and the range of emotions that Harry goes through, smashing things. Yeah. He is in a rage about the loss of his godfather. And
spoilers.
Yeah, sorry.
But I think it does lose a lot.
It does, and it's such a shame.
Yeah.
Because the grief is so
tangible, visceral.
Yeah, exactly. All them words there.
I've even talked about it in my counseling classes about I've felt understood.
Yeah.
My last one is about death. Shocker. Wow. Smoke Gets in Your Eyes and Other Lessons from the Crematory by Caitlin Doughty. If you've been on YouTube and are also interested in death, macabre things like me, you'll know her from her channel series called Ask a Mortician. She's been on the tube YouTube a long time. And she was a mortician, and so she answers questions about it. Earlier this year I read 2 of her books, that one and My Cat Ate My Eyeballs. But this one is more of a memoir, and I loved it. It just talks about her life, also working in a crematory, about death. I loved it, and I recommend it. And I made my friend Sarah read it.
Now, I think you have a nice balance, as I was saying, between fiction and non-fiction, whereas I need to try and, expand my knowledge a bit more. I think it's nice to read what you like, but also take some time to learn more about the world and interesting professions such as that.
It was a conscious effort.
Yeah.
I think there was a couple conversations I had with people that were like, oh, you haven't read this, you only read that. And well, don't ever say that to somebody. It made me feel dumb, and I don't like that feeling. So then I was like, you know what? They are right. They said it wrong, but they're right.
Yeah,
so I wanted to read more nonfiction, and I like learning.
My final book is Ghost by Dolly Alderton, and she is a best-selling author and journalist, and if you know about her, she's written Everything I Know About Love, and wow, I've added that to my list. I've read it. This was actually a birthday present, so shout out to Patrice, and thank you for this gift. It was an amazing piece of writing, very similar to the emotions I felt with Girl, Woman, Other, talking about love, self-love, finding a partner, but then when that goes wrong, not necessarily throwing all of your energy into that, and instead realising that loving yourself is equally as good. And I think we could probably have a very in-depth conversation about this and about romance or romance novels in general. I took a break from them for years because I was reading a lot of trashy ones. Just a spoiler, because I just have to say it. Dolly probably didn't intend for this to be a twist. For me it was, because at the end of romance novels you always expect 2 main characters to fall in love and that be it. In this one, she didn't get him. They didn't end up together, and there was no resolution with him, but there was a resolution with herself. And I think, wow. That was amazing for me, and I can't recommend it enough because of that. Because it's not cliche, because it was realistic, and also because it's fiction, but I could relate to it. It really highlighted how toxic the dating world can be, and how you can get so caught up in it and kind of lose yourself. And she just really highlighted how you can, you know, stay level-headed by the end. So I really, really enjoyed it. And Dolly, I'm waiting for more.
And more.
And more.
So those were our top reads of 2020. I feel proud of us.
Yeah, me too.
Very nice.
It was a lot to get through, but I hope it was
helpful.
Yeah, helpful, clear, and if it, you know, I don't know, nudged you in a direction that, you know, I'm not sure what I'm going to read next. But yeah, that's it for our
2020 wrap up.
Yes. So thank you for watching.
Yeah, bye guys, I'm Summer.
I'm Sean. I got a bauble in my butt.
An ornament?